Shitcase Cinema. On the Shitcase Cinema. Oh, it's the Shitcase Cinema.
Groovy.
Now, most people will have at least heard of this film and the series, and it is held in very high regard as far as B horror movies go. So this is the sequel to Evil Dead, which, if you don't know, is pretty much like Evil Dead 2. In fact, some people even go as far to say that Evil Dead 2 is more of a remake than a sequel, but then some people say tomato instead of tomato, and then some people are just retarded, aren't they? So Bruce Campbell stars as Ash, and here we see him and his girlfriend Linda driving out to a secluded cabin in the middle of nowhere. Now the funny thing is, I don't think the cabin is theirs, nor have they rented it out. Ash just somehow knows that nobody is home and brainstorms the idea of staying there for a few days in order to save a few pennies. Cheap son of a bitch. Now I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's right. But if I am wrong, I don't want to see messages on here saying, oh no, you're in fact wrong with this, and that. The actual facts of the movie are, right, I don't want to hear those because I don't care, nerds. So Ash is dancing around with his girlfriend here, and he walks off randomly, probably because he's gay, and finds an old tape recorder, so decides to have a listen to it whilst looking through an old scary book. Now I wouldn't know what kind of chat-busting hits that recorder would have on it, but Ash's hopes of adding some romantic music to the scene are sadly dashed because it's got some miserable old bastard talking about the Book of the Dead, and he starts to recite an ancient spell. Now reciting this ancient spell suddenly makes us see a POV shot of someone or something that smashes through the window and grabs Ash's girlfriend. Now I'd personally shit myself thinking a huge mother bear had smashed its way into the house, but Ash, no, he doesn't care. He simply walks outside into the dark woods without a torch or a weapon. And that's his character pretty much to a T. He's a little bit stupid, really. So Linda pops up, although she's now possessed. So what's the best thing to do? Yep, chop her head off and bury her. When did he find the time to build a wooden cross? Shouldn't it be like concentrating all his time and efforts into finding her killer? Oh no, sorry, he just killed her, didn't he? Damn. Well, yep, fair enough then, spend all your time building a wooden cross. Suddenly there's another POV shot and weird whirring sound which kind of sounds like an engine or something. So let's pretend there's an invisible Harley Davidson motorbike haunting the woods and mowing people over relentlessly. Or making them spin around in circles. Now when I first saw this movie on video, I didn't know what to expect as I'd never heard of it, and the front cover looked pretty shit in all fairness. And I was wanting to see a really cool horror movie, and I wasn't aware of the whole horror comedy crossover at the time. So personally, I didn't take to this film too well initially. And speaking of taking to it, I think that people will either like Evil Dead 2 or not. I think there's no middle ground with this film. You either understand it or you don't. Now interestingly enough, this film does have quite a huge cult following, but it's still something of an underground film in that the vast majority of everyday Joe brain-dead sheep-like mainstream moviegoers won't have even heard of it, let alone see it. Anyway, let's get back on track because I'm getting a little bit sidetracked now. So Ash gets possessed and goes back and forth like this quite a few times, but always manages to fight it off and remain relatively sane. He battles the Harley Davidson in the house some more, and then before you know it, his hand cracks and has a life of its own. Yeah, seriously. Now, the film's slapstick comedy comes to the forefront as Ash starts to attack himself with his own hand. So, like with his girlfriend, he doesn't want the stress of having some mad possessed being in his life, so he chops his hand off with a chainsaw. As you do. Now, Evil Dead 2 has gushes of blood throughout, and it's way over the top. Again, it's not done on a serious level, it kind of borders on the stupidly ridiculous, but whatever. So without going into huge detail about every single scene, Ash fights his headless dead girlfriend some more after she tries to impress him with a lame dance routine, which just looks crap, so he chops her up with the chainsaw. And by this point you're wondering how on earth the film can go on with just one guy in it and all this stupid shit that happens to him. Well, a few more idiots do enter the picture in the form of this woman here, who turns out to be pretty annoying, as all she does is scream all the time, so you want her to die come the end. Her moron friend, or boyfriend, or gay friend, or maybe he's not even a friend at all, a redneck with rotting teeth, and his partner who's probably his wife and sister at the same time. Now they all team up and go along to the cabin because it belongs to the whiny bitch's father. Now they all take an instant disliking to Ash and kick the shit out of him and throw him into the cellar. Now that's what you get for squatting in someone else's house, Campbell. Next time you should fork out some decent money for a good summer holiday like going to Camp Blood or Sleepaway Camp. What a film. I still can't get over that. It's absolutely ridiculous. So the bunch of goons decide to put some music on to cheer themselves up, but again it's just a miserable old man telling us about his dead wife and trying to make us feel sorry for him that he's buried her in the cellar, just where Campbell happens to be chilling out, and boom! Look at that! Right on cue, an old zombie woman turns up. So they let Campbell out, and look at that. I don't care what anyone says, that is the most cheap looking puppet ever to grace the silver screen. Now they squash its head and its eyeball flies out, so why stand there in its way screaming so you can choke on it? It was obvious what's going to happen, and that's why it's not funny. I've always felt this moment was just so embarrassingly low in terms of trying to get a laugh, because it's just not funny. Plus, if you look carefully, you can actually see the stick attached to the eyeball. Kind of an Ed Wood moment there. The walls shake about, you can see the shadow of the boom mic up there, and the guys have to hold on to their things, whatever the hell they are, just in case they lose them. So Campbell takes charge pretty much from here on in, as he claims to know what's going on. Next up, some old crow starts singing a song from the cellar, and I genuinely think that's the creepiest scene in the entire movie. Kind of reminds me of that old bag in Stephen King's It. Why doesn't anyone just go and kick her in the head and make her false teeth fly out? Because it's already been done with the eyeball, and that was comedy gold. Bogus. So the blonde guy suddenly and randomly turns into a flying ugly son of a bitch and eats his girlfriend's hair for some reason. Now there probably is a reason, but I don't care. Okay? So Campbell axes him to death naturally. He's so angry in this film is Campbell, he practically kills everybody and everything. So the redneck lady runs away, gets killed by a tree, which makes a refreshing change to be honest, from having Campbell just axe everything up, and then the redneck with the bad teeth gets stabbed and dragged into the cellar only to be drowned by red water. But you know, you're meant to be under the illusion that it's his blood. So just look after your teeth, boys and girls. I'm sure your dentist will be very pleased. Otherwise, before you know it, you'll wake up one morning and be this guy. Now, is it really worth me talking about the ending? If you've seen the film, you're likely a fan and so know about it. And if you've not seen it, then you're probably not a fan and you don't care one iota. Well, if you can believe this, Ash gets into a fight with a stop-motion monster that looks like it'd fit right at home in one of those old Jason and the Argonaut movies, or Jason and the Golden Fleece, or Jason and his melon-sized balls, or, you know, whatever. Now he goes and chainsaws some more monsters, the whiny cow gets stabbed by Ash's hand. See, now that actually does count as another kill for Ash, probably making him the guy with the highest body count in movie history. And then he flies into the sky to enjoy a low budget light show, fireworks and God knows only what, before partying on down with a bunch of tossers dressed as tin cans. So if I gave this groovy movie 1 out of 10, people would moan, "Fuck off, it's great!" And if I gave this movie 10 out of 10, people would moan, "Wanker!" So if I gave it 7.5 out of 10, which is what I was thinking of doing, people would moan. So I think I'll give Evil Dead 2 8 out of 10. I still think Campbell should have called it quits at the start when his girlfriend was kidnapped by the 3 evil bears who mistook her for Goldilocks and wanted to get some payback for having their puddings eaten. Yeah, that's a toy cow and that's a moss man from He-Man, but they can still kick the shit out of Goldilocks. So, should have just got into your car, Bruce, gone a running and moved on. That'd be a great children's fable, wouldn't it, to tell kids as a bedtime story? Daddy, can you read me a bedtime story? Sure, Tangina. Man and girlfriend break into a cabin. The girl was eaten by 3 bears. The man drove away to live another day. Daddy, that was shit, but what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story? There isn't one. The end.